Hello, my name is Ben Darty, and I am going to be giving you a brief introduction to blended learning. What is blended learning? Blended learning takes what teachers have to offer and what computers have to offer and combines them together to create an ideal learning experience for students. Students do academic work both face-to-face with a teacher as well as on a computer. There are a lot of misconceptions about blended learning, and so before I go any further, I'd like to talk about what blended learning is not. Blended learning is not the same as online learning. In online learning, students are largely on their own. They often work from home. They log on to a computer and do work through that computer program, and occasionally they touch base with a teacher of record who could be anywhere in the country or even in the world. Students do not spend all day sitting at the computer in blended learning. And finally, a blended learning, while not being the same as online learning, is also not the same as a traditional classroom. Blended learning defies simplification. It's a complex interplay of many variables. What are some things that computers can do well? In what ways can computers aid educators in helping students learn? One thing that computers do very well is that they respond quickly. They can give students immediate feedback. This can be very important as a student is working on, for example, a problem in mathematics. If the student gets the wrong answer, it's helpful for the student to know that they got the wrong answer right away on the very first problem, so that the student can then work to correct his or her method, rather than doing 20 problems all wrong and not finding out until the next day when the teacher goes over the homework. Likewise, if the student performs the problem correctly, it's beneficial for the student to know that right away as well, so that the student can proceed with confidence. Another thing that computers can do very well is that they can multitask. They can attend to many different things at once. So if you have 50 students working on something on a computer, those computers have no trouble dealing with 50 students. They wouldn't have trouble if you made it 1,000 students, because computers have processors that allow them to handle all of those interactions seamlessly and quickly. Human beings are not like this. We deal best one-on-one or in a small group. The other thing computers can do really well is collect data and organize data. As students work through material on the computer can collect tons of information about how long the student spends, about the student's input, student responses, the degree to which students are grasping certain kinds of concepts, the percent which they're scoring on certain understanding checks along the way, and it can organize this data and present it in a way that is readable and usable. Usable by whom? This is what brings us to the other half of blended learning. What can teachers do well? Now, before I begin, I would like to say as a disclaimer that teachers do many things well. Certainly more than I'm going to list here. But for the purposes of blended learning, I wanted to list a few of the key things that teachers contribute in a blended learning environment above and beyond what the computer can do. One thing that teachers do very well is read a student's affect. We have the ability to understand what a student's normal behavior and appearance are, and we know when students deviate from that. This can be for any number of reasons, and we have the ability to intervene and to interact with the student, engage them in a conversation to try to determine what the cause of that change is. Teachers provide enrichment and extension beyond the core curriculum. The computer is tied to what is within its programming. It cannot go beyond its programming. As teachers, we have the ability to take concepts that are within the curriculum and extend them into real-world applications for students. Typically, computer programs have 1, 2, maybe 3 ways of explaining a certain concept. And if one of those things doesn't work for a student, there's not much more that a computer can do except repeat itself. As teachers, what we do on a day-to-day basis involves coming up with new ways of explaining ideas to students, using manipulatives or analogies, engaging them in conversations or Socratic dialogue through projects or critical reading. These are all just a sampling of the methods that we have at our disposal. And the other thing that we do really well is that we can assess for deep learning. We can address those higher order thinking skills like creativity, synthesis, judgment, that a computer has difficulty assessing. Computers are really good at assessing things that involve rote memorization or a fairly scripted answer, like a short answer question or a rote memorization, vocabulary, those sorts of things. But when you get into more nuanced thinking that involves judgment and synthesis of ideas, this is something that a teacher needs to assess, a human being. What this all comes back to is a focus on student learning. Blended learning takes these things that the computer does well, combines them with what the teacher does well, and provides students with a high-quality educational experience. It takes the routine and programmable tasks away from the teacher and gives them to the computer, who quite frankly does them much better, leaving more time for the teacher to focus on students, student learning gaps, remediation, enrichment, extension, application, small group work, projects. In short, the things that most of us became teachers for in the first place. This has been a short presentation about blended learning. I hope that it was informational for you. Feel free to visit my blog, 100 Great Books, at .blogspot.com for more information or to see some of the other things that I've written. Thank you.